This might be the absolute strangest video I've ever made. What can writers learn from this?
Christmas style is ridiculous.
Or this. Honestly, it's probably more than you think. If you've been around YouTube recently, you undoubtedly have seen videos popping up all over the place about something called Skibidi Toilet. It's a recent viral hit that collected a mind-boggling 2.8 billion views over the month of May. I said billion, as in not the one with the M, the one with the B, billion views. But what is Skibidi Toilet? In brief, it's a series of short animations with ambiguous lore, but deceptively good storytelling. Let's talk about what authors can look at and learn from this new viral sensation, and why it's not as shocking or surprising that it's doing as well as it is. You've probably heard the 4 pillars of storytelling, or the 7 pillars of storytelling, or perhaps it was the 5 persuasive pulls of storytelling. The general gist of that is that there are key elements to every story that people tell in any, kind of function that work. Things that just appeal to human nature. Skibidi Toilet off the bat has nailed 2 of them: novelty and tension. And they've done it by harnessing the strength of a new format that works incredibly well for what they're doing: short form content. It's not mere chance, and there are things that are being done here that you can replicate in your writing, or at least be aware of. I also want to point out that Skibidi Toilet's success hasn't come out of nowhere. The channel in question has been working hard on their content since 2016 and has had previous viral success with animations, just not at this level. On to Skibidi Toilet, and perhaps the end of my YouTube channel. I have watched every single one of these videos, and I have seen 3 things that we as storytellers can learn and adapt to our own writing or whatever medium we are using. And one thing, if you're looking long form, you should avoid at all costs, especially if you're writing something like a novel. Let's start with the things that Skibidi Toilet does very well. You have to start with novelty. It's fucking weird. There's no other way around it. Studies have linked novelty to the release of dopamine, which enhances one's mood. Novelty is, of course, the quality of being original or unusual. Skibidi Toilet has that in spades, whether it's using animations from a game that's closing in on 20 years old, or the fact that everything in it is just kind of absurd. Skibidi Toilet leans so heavily into the novelty pillar, not only by reinforcing the weird with each short episode, but also incorporating the power scaling trope, most often seen in anime and fantasy, to refresh the novelty as often as possible, really from episode to episode. It's basically novelty on overdrive, extreme overdrive. The next key pillar is going to be conflict or tension. A key part of Skibidi Toilet, perhaps the most important part, at least after novelty, is conflict and tension. Every single short animation involves conflict of some sort, usually direct conflict between the Skibidi Toilets and the camcorder people, or the TV people, or whatever these are. I don't know. It's really fucking weird. It's kind of hard to explain, but this conflict also leads to questions. Why are they in conflict? Who's right and who's wrong? Who will win? While not needing to be as direct, as violent, or even as external as Skibidi Toilet, conflict is a key part of storytelling. In its base form, conflict is the clash of opposing forces with a character's own pursuit of a goal. You've heard this all before, but essentially a character has wants or needs, and there is some kind of obstacle standing in the way of that character's goals. Conflict doesn't have to be a cameraman punching a toilet face. But I guess it helps sometimes. Novelty and tension makes sense as part of storytelling, but this next one is a bit more unique, and it's tied to those questions. Questions around novelty and conflict specifically. If you're familiar with YouTube history, you might know of another story that exploded in popularity over the years due to its nebulous novel nature: Five Nights at Freddy's. The common thread between both of these is that they hint at a deep lore, but they do not give it away. They are begging the audience to start asking questions, and many people do, creating a formula of exponential growth. Countless YouTube videos and articles have been written about the lore of these seemingly simple stories. It's a bit like a book club discussing the finer points of your story, or a Reddit thread discussing the lore of Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, or the latest books from Brandon Sanderson. Word of mouth on a global scale, with countless people wanting to be that one person that figures it out. What's happening is a unique take on how to feed your audience information. It's not easy to do, but in both of these cases, the creators have made the world and the lore interesting enough to engage the audience, but ambiguous enough to invite dissection. I'm not saying, hey, go do this to your story. I'm just saying that it might be something good to keep in mind. Think about how much you want to give away and how much you want your audience to actually be able to come up with themselves. What control are you willing to give up on your own story? And how are you willing to adapt if you're doing something like a series? But the key to all this is really just think of your audience like people with their own thoughts, feelings, emotions, and really how they want to view your work. Let people experiment and have their own theories or fan fiction. At least that's my advice, because I've always found the creativity of others to be just as important to any story as the creator of said story. Okay, so quick note from future me here. I didn't want to get roasted too much in the comment for that little line there about the importance of other people's creativity. I am not simply just talking about fan fiction, but also about the creativity of your readers in their own minds when they're reading your book, how they are thinking and dealing with your characters and your plot choices. I think that creativity is why people read in the first place, because we are not spoon feeding them every single detail. We are giving them gaps to allow for interpretation, whether it's interpretation that will be proven wrong in the future or interpretation that will be proven right. It's still important to consider the creativity of your audience. And I think without that creativity, there's no reason for us to write versus someone making a movie. But as much as it's doing things well, there's one part of Skibidi Toilet where it is pretty deeply lacking. And I think it's been lacking so much that the creator has actually noticed it and started to make some changes. I think you could say with some supreme confidence that if Skibidi Toilet was produced once as one long 30-minute or hour-long video, it would have been far less successful. It's certainly bingeable as is, but the way it's cut up in less than a minute intervals makes it easy to digest while also playing into the nebulous nature of the lore. It lets the content breathe and percolate in people's minds and allows theories to spring up. It also allows a creator to react to the trends. If he had released it as a single movie, it might still happen. This all may still happen on a smaller scale, but imagine trying to convince someone that you know to watch an hour of this. It's a much harder sell than an 11-second clip where you can just tell someone, hey, this is kind of crazy, you should watch this, and then watch the next 11-second clip, and then the next one. And there's a reason why. The way Skibidi Toilet is structured, it's clear from the beginning that it's essentially just a meme. There's random Half-Life characters dancing, meme pictures on the wall, and it lacks coherence or characterization. As the shorts picked up traction, the coherence latched onto a single thread of conflict, but one thing didn't come along with it: characterization. At the heart of a good story is going to be character growth, both within themselves and externally. As you learn more about the characters, you begin to see them as people with their own thoughts, desires, feelings, and emotions. That allows audiences to build connections to the characters and in some instances see parts of themselves in them. It also allows them to subtly predict what they may do next or how they'll react to a situation. And if they deviate from that prediction, while still within the confines of the established character, it allows for moments of shock and ultimately satisfaction. Satisfaction is the end goal of a lot of writing, and this is where Skibidi Toilet mostly falls flat. Over the course of the episodes released so far, characterization has been few and far between, and I wouldn't say that's due to the lack of dialogue. The inability to create a connection with the creator and the audience is essentially a lack of repeating characters. If you change the character every episode, who are they going to connect with? Essentially, what they have done to kind of find a way around this is create archetypes that repeat themselves. Something that's even reinforced by the fact that some of the same animations or same character models are used repeatedly throughout. So you can at least recognize the character models, if not the actual characters themselves. But the archetypes and the characters still seem very disposable, constantly being eaten or blown up or destroyed in some way or another. There's nothing permanent, really, except the conflict. The conflict itself and the continued growth of power and power scaling seem to be the two constants throughout. But this is changing. In recent episodes, the creator has started to bring back characters that are easily recognizable, characters that have their own character model, because there's no dialogue, so visually is how you're going to have to connect here. And then essentially bringing them back and kind of even creating their own plot lines for some of these characters, things that you can remember. Well, this happened to this character. I wonder how they're going to react in the future. Essentially, by doing this and by repeating things and creating longer storylines that are tied to an individual character instead of just the conflict at large, you are allowing the ability for an audience to make an emotional connection to different characters within your work. Fucking hell. Am I really talking about creating emotional connections with a face singing a song from a toilet? Is this what being a YouTuber is? Fuck. But to this point, the story has obviously been successful and has relied on those 3 points that I laid out earlier, and it's worked. And the creator is adapting and changing and hopefully finding ways to make it more evolving, because it creates a new story for more people to enjoy. But now I want to hear from you. Am I totally off base here? Am I reading way too much into it? And it's really just because it's funny and that's why it's gotten so big. It's just this crazy, ridiculous thing that has kind of just like gone viral out of its novelty and craziness, and that is it. Let me know down in the I got so into that I hit my microphone. Let me know down in the comment section below, and I'll maybe set me right and tell me that no, it's just the Half-Life 2 animations that are funny. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and just keep fucking writing.